Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm thrilled to have you here today as we explore a powerful and often overlooked journey. Today's presentation is titled, What If That Silent Path is Actually the One That Leads to the Most Important Love of All? And yes, that love begins with yourself. Over the next few minutes, we'll dive into what it truly means to find strength in solitude, to embrace self-love, and to challenge the conventional ideas about femininity and dependency. We'll uncover why some women choose to walk this silent, solitary path, and what it reveals about our understanding of love, power, and independence. So, let's get started and open our minds to new perspectives on love and self-discovery. Wholeness intimidates those who still live in halves. That's why she seems unreachable. Not because she's difficult, but because she's whole. She doesn't want company, she wants reciprocity. She's no longer attracted to promises, only presence. Emotional maturity is terrifying because it demands depth, presence, and truth. And that's what we call emotional maturity. What you see now isn't coldness. She knows chaos. She's loved until she lost herself. She's given too much, begged for too little, and accepted crumbs no one should accept. Then one day, she woke up, not suddenly, but through a series of disappointments that stopped hurting and started teaching. She didn't stop believing in love. She just stopped accepting relationships that made her feel small. Her solitude didn't grow from an open wound. It grew from a scar that finally healed. And there, in the vastness of her own unconscious, she confronts the ghosts she once avoided. Childhood wounds, silent abandonments, attachments mistaken for love. While most people search for completion through external connections, she turns inward. Jung believed that what we refuse to face internally, we end up projecting externally. Many women still confuse solitude with absence, when in fact, it's often the fertile soil of self-discovery. She didn't build walls to keep the world out. She built them to protect herself from losing who she is. The silence surrounding a woman who lives alone is often mistaken for emptiness, but in reality, it's a sacred inner sanctuary. The world may call her cold or distant, but they overlook the truth. Her solitude isn't emptiness, it's sanctuary. She isn't seeking perfection. She's seeking a partner who doesn't destroy what she has built within herself. Because what others call picky is simply the bare minimum she finally realized she deserves. And she smiles, not from a place of superiority, but from clarity. People often say, nobody's perfect, or tell her, you should be more open, or even, you're too picky. She hears these words and recognizes that society's expectations are trying to shape her, but she refuses to live by convention. Instead, she lives by essence. As Jung said, where convention rules, there's little room for authenticity. There's a fine line between isolating oneself and preserving one's integrity. She chooses preservation. She chooses peace in a world that still preaches that happiness must come in pairs. Until that true connection arrives, she walks alone, not out of bitterness, but out of loyalty to her own soul. She doesn't need to complete anyone because she overflows with fullness herself. She attracts admiration from those who are also seeking wholeness, but she also faces fear from those who remain broken, dependent, or insecure. Her presence awakens two extremes in the world, and that takes courage that goes beyond charm or sweet words. It's a courage rooted in emotional depth, responsibility, and the willingness to explore the difficult, often avoided, parts of ourselves. She isn't waiting for someone to save her. Instead, she wants someone who truly sees her, someone who recognizes her worth and respects her independence. She wants partnership, not rescue. And that's a powerful message about valuing ourselves fully before sharing our lives with someone else. What we're seeing here is that a woman's clarity can be her revolution. When she stops living to please others and instead focuses on being true to herself, it changes everything. Staying home instead of wasting time with someone who's empty isn't arrogance, it's emotional clarity. Walking away isn't about drama, it's about self-defense. Saying no isn't a test, it's an expression of her truth. She seeks depth in a superficial world, presence in a distracted one, and soulful connections in a culture obsessed with aesthetics. This pace she sets disrupts a society that's addicted to instant gratification. She's not in a rush, nor does she feel the need to rush to fit timelines. She respects her own rhythm. Her authenticity acts as a mirror, truthful and sometimes brutal, especially for those still wearing masks. But she's not trying to expose anyone. She's simply living her truth. Women who seek approval often feel judged, and men who depend on female insecurity may feel threatened. And that's exactly what tears masks off. She proves that a woman can be truly happy without relying on anyone else. Her presence alone can make others uncomfortable, not because she's loud, but because she doesn't need to speak at all. She is a threat because she embodies freedom. What she desires is partnership, not just completion. She seeks presence, not possession. And she values reciprocity over dependency. Because she now recognizes her own worth, she refuses to be half of anything again. She has shattered, she descended into the abyss, confronting her deepest fears and wounds, and emerged on the other side, more whole than ever before. This journey reflects the essence of Jung's individuation, the process of becoming fully oneself. Until someone can love her without shrinking her, she chooses her own growth. Not out of pride, but out of integrity. True love, she understands, doesn't cage, consume, or manipulate. It expands and liberates. She once believed that being alone meant something was wrong with her. Now she sees that solitude was actually the first step toward becoming whole. That realization changes everything. She faced her shadow, dove into the depths of her unconscious, and rebuilt herself piece by piece. She no longer sees herself through others' eyes, only through her own. This woman walked through her own fire and emerged transformed. Her awakening is a visible manifestation of Jung's individuation, the process of becoming truly, fully herself. She walks away early now, not as a wound, but as wisdom. Her intuition is sharp, and her energy acts as a filter. She can see through performances and empty promises. She's not unreachable. She simply refuses to be invaded. She nourishes herself with silence and warms herself with her own presence. Because someone who has already survived her own abyss no longer fears being alone. First with fear, then with awareness, and finally with quiet invulnerability. But she held her ground. When she stopped accepting less, the world accused her of being too much. She descended into her own emotional hell, facing ancestral wounds, generational pain, inherited trauma. She broke cycles and refused relationships that recycled the same scripts of abandonment and imbalance. She lived that truth. Jung once said, "The tree that grows to heaven must also have roots that reach down to hell." And that's exactly what she embodies. She has roots in darkness and branches reaching toward heaven. When a woman chooses herself, society often reacts with panic. That's because her act of self-empowerment challenges the emotional systems that have historically kept her small and confined. She no longer waits around to be chosen by others. She takes control and makes her own choices. She also refuses to wear labels because labels tend to shrink her, to limit her true essence. And she refuses to perform just to fit into societal expectations, because performance can sometimes betray who she really is at her core. She may be alone in this journey, but she is not lost. She might be silent, but she's not empty inside. She's soft, yet unbreakable. This awakening reconnects her to an ancient memory, the wild, intuitive, and sovereign feminine energy that has always been within her. She begins to see herself not as an ornament or a dependency, but as the origin of creation. She recognizes herself as a force, not a servant. Her transformation isn't just personal, it's archetypal. It reflects a universal shift, a rebirth of the true, sovereign woman. And in doing so, she becomes the modern archetype of the sovereign woman, a powerful symbol of self-ownership, authenticity, and inner strength. Today, I want to talk about a new archetype that's emerging, a woman who has chosen to walk away from superficiality and instead seeks depth in her life. She's tired of being desired for surface qualities alone and instead desires respect. She's embracing solitude, but not because she's given up on love. Rather, because she's discovered that real love never requires self-denial. This isn't about arrogance. It's about self-love in its purest form. She'd rather wait patiently than settle for emotional crumbs that leave her feeling empty. If that seems like too much for some, so be it. She's not waiting for fairy tales, she's waiting for a soul alliance. What does that mean? A love without domination or submission, a bond where both partners can grow and flourish without dimming each other's light. She spent too long squeezing herself into spaces too small for her soul, and now she only enters where she can remain whole. But at her core, she still longs for love. She still wants to be held, understood, and truly chosen. And it's important to remember, her love will not be her salvation. It will be her celebration. Because she understands that real love is about mutual respect, growth, and joy, not rescue or dependency. So, as we reflect on this new archetype, let's recognize that this is about honoring ourselves, embracing depth over superficiality, and waiting for love that uplifts rather than diminishes. And that is enough. It simply is. The core idea here is that the awakened woman understands her own worth and doesn't need external validation. Her inner strength, her true self, remains vibrant and unshaken. The soul of an awakened woman doesn't dim or fade. It stays luminous because she's loyal to her own truth. She knows when to close doors without resentment, not out of anger, but out of discernment. If a space no longer nourishes her, she quietly withdraws, honoring her needs. And she still smiles, even in solitude, because she sees solitude not as emptiness, but as a space for growth and reflection. When she does this, she recognizes that nothing outside her can hold more power than what lives within. This is the essence of what Jung called individuation, becoming fully, unapologetically yourself. It's not rebellion, it's awakening to your true nature. Inside, she feels a subtle alignment happening, as if everything is falling into place. Choosing solitude isn't a sign of weakness or punishment. When a woman chooses to be alone, many will rush in to tell her she's wrong, or that she's missing out. But the truth is, being alone is a conscious vow, an act of honoring herself. It's about connecting with her inner world and trusting that this space is vital for her growth. So I want to emphasize that solitude, for her, is a powerful act of self-respect and self-awareness. Because when something touches the soul, the least we can do is allow it to keep traveling. Let it resonate. Let it echo. Let it awaken. And if this message found you at the right moment, don't keep it to yourself. If that love hasn't appeared yet, perhaps it's because you first needed to become the woman who no longer accepts less than she deserves. A love that cannot be begged, negotiated, or disguised. If she resonates with you, it may be because you too are ready for a different kind of love. A love that begins with reconciliation with yourself. A love rooted in silence, presence, and truth. Because this woman is not a myth. She lives in many. She awakens in more. Maybe something in this story touched you. Maybe a memory surfaced. Maybe a truth you've been avoiding is knocking from within. And what once hurt becomes wisdom. Waiting becomes purpose. Lack becomes choice. Desire becomes discernment. When that realization blooms, she understands now. Love is not about finding someone, it is about never losing yourself again. But she has seen behind the curtain. The world will keep trying to convince her she needs someone. It will offer distractions, pretty illusions, plastic versions of love. Her solitude is not the end, it is the beginning.